Hey, I'm Nicole.
And I'm Dee Dee. We are so glad you're here with us on our second podcast episode.
Yay! Okay, so we're back.
We are.
I know, I'm excited. Okay, so usually what we would do is I or you would start off with 3 questions. So that just a get to know you kind of thing. But I feel like we need to have a little conversation because we filmed, we talked, we videoed, and we finished, and it was put together our very first podcast. And we kind of had some mixed emotions about it in general from taping it and then after watching it. So I kind of want to talk about that because let's be open about how we felt about things. So how did you feel about completing our first podcast?
Yeah, I was excited to have the first one done. And I think this is a great topic to talk about right now because the first podcast was Are You Enough? And it's where we talked about our fears and our doubts that hold us back. And when you put yourself out there and then you see it and you critique it, my mind goes to the critical details of lighting and angles and body position, all of those things. And then, of course, the important things, value. Are we bringing value to the listener? And so I had a list of takeaways, and what I thought was so funny was my list was a lot longer than your list.
It was.
Yes.
I actually thought about it a lot last night. I thought how interesting it was how you and I look at the same thing and we had different takeaways from it. I mean, doesn't that happen all the time just in life? Like, that's why we have such an issue at times relating with different people because we could be in the same exact situation and see things totally different.
Absolutely.
So I almost had to change my shirt after we were done. Like, I was so, like, I had a stress reaction of, like, sweating a little, so nervous. Adding the video aspect was challenging for me. And that was something that you and I originally had not sought out to do, but yet I'm so glad we did. But that was a challenging thing, which I would say that probably pulls up some of the things that we critiqued about ourselves had to do with the video and not just the audio. But
Absolutely.
So some of the things that you were frustrated with, that you saw, what does that say to you? Like, where did you struggle with that?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that I struggled with it. It was interesting to see that some of the things I have tried to work on over the years. So Nicole and I both work with a life coach, actually, a life and success coach. And there have been things we've talked about over the years that I have worked to overcome and to move past. And I noticed some of those small little things were still showing up. And I appreciated that we're doing the video because it made me more aware of those situations. I'm also a very visual person. I'm very visual. And so when I look at something too, I'm going to look at it in 8 different ways. And so for me, when I looked at what we had created, I was excited that we had created it. We have been talking about this for so long. And to have the first one done and hitting a topic that was really near and dear to our hearts, but also rang true with so many other people was exciting for me. But there were a lot of little nuances that I had takeaways from.
One of the things that I struggled with after we taped it is I wanted everything that you and I have been experiencing and talking about. It was almost like I wanted to wrap it up in one episode. there's so many things that we want to talk about and share and bring to light and voice out loud. Mm-hmm. And then when we were done, we were like, did we do enough in that first episode? Which is really why we're calling this episode this whole podcast Enough.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what we did when it was over. When we went to critique ourselves on that day of videoing, and also when you watched it afterwards, mm-hmm. we were actually asking ourselves a question: was that enough? Yes. And yes, let's bring that question to the table. Yes, it was. It was we did exactly what we wanted to do, and that was kick off this, speak out, and connect with women in this world, and throw it out there that we have struggles too, mm-hmm. and that we have voices that talk to us too, and it's time to talk about them, mm-hmm. so that it's not a struggle anymore. And those very voices snuck up with us taping this very podcast. So
absolutely,
I think that I think we did great for our first one. I think that's awesome. I was just pure excited that it actually got put together. So, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun watching. It's almost like the Bible talks about how we're a ball of clay, and how God mm-hmm. is using his hands to mold us over time. I feel like this podcast is going to be molded over time too. So
I agree. And I know we'll look back on it and we will laugh at how far we've come. But for our first one, it was very good. I really want to make sure we give a quality product to the viewer and to the listener. And so it's important to me that we do acknowledge those little critiques that make a big difference. Because I think the details do make a big difference in the end.
I agree. Well, yeah. I think we rocked it. So we're moving on now to our second topic. And this is a topic, again, that came up on one of our runs. It mm-hmm. probably is going to happen a lot when things are brought back up. And it had been something that had been eating at my gut. And once we started talking about it, you actually voiced that this very topic had been something that you had been thinking a lot about also. Mm-hmm. And it was what I was hearing women say during the time of when the whole quarantine started. Mm-hmm. And I know this has been a long-term topic, but it was being voiced out loud a lot, is that they were struggling to balance it all. They were dealing with, we were at the end of the school year, or it wasn't even the end, actually. We were like in that.
We had 2 months left.
Yes, we had 2 months left. So kids needed some schooling. Jobs, we were trying to figure out how jobs were being transitioned back home. Mm-hmm. Spouses were at home. There was lots of people to be fed, lots of dishes to be done, lots of laundry to be had. And caring for ourselves was supposed to be thrown in there along with caring for all the people. And balance was an issue. And my heart hurt for the things that I was reading and for the conversations that I was having. Mm-hmm. And so I finally thought to myself, we're not supposed to actually balance it. So that is what we're going to talk about today, is balance versus alignment. So what are your thoughts on that? Because that was really where our conversation started when we were on our run.
Yeah, I love this topic because people strive all the time for balance, and I think that's one of the biggest lies in our community right now, in our world right now, is that you have to learn to balance your life. And first of all, how do you define balance? What does that even mean? When we don't identify what the goal is, but we just say we need balance in our life, it means that we're feeling overwhelmed and we're feeling rushed and we're feeling like we don't have enough time for anybody that needs our time. We're at home and we feel like we should be at work. We're working and we feel like we should be tending to things at home. And you just don't feel like you have enough time. And when I hear balance, I would see people trying to create schedules. And I've worked at home for years, since before McKenna was born. So I've always had this unique work-life balance situation going on where I was trying to work from home and I was also the primary caregiver for the kids, and it was really important to me that I would take them to school and pick them up and take them to their activities. And I also wanted to be involved in the community. I wanted to be involved in the schools and in church. And so that was a lot to try to balance. And what I learned was you can't balance it. It was like, to me, years ago when I was trying to find balance, it was like I was spinning plates. And I was just trying to keep all of these plates spinning, and it was exhausting.
Yes.
It was exhausting. And when we were on the run, and by the way, this whole podcast came to be because Nicole and I have been running together for 5 or 6 years, and we would run early in the mornings. We'd have the best conversations. And we would take these conversations to the different places that we served, the different communities that we served, and it would impact our conversations with them. But we thought it would be nice to invite people into the conversations that we were having on our runs, because we would bring up a topic and start unpacking it, not have all the answers, and sometimes even after the conversation, it's not that we had answers, it was just that it gave us something to think about. And so you brought up a really cool analogy about balance versus alignment. And it was something that you realized at your chiropractor's office, right? Like you had this epiphany while you were on the table or shortly after, is that right?
That's right. Actually, I totally forgot that that's where it really came to my mind, that if we aren't aligned in our life with the things that are important to us, if we are believers but we're not in Scripture, or we're not spending time with the Lord, if you are married and not plugged into your marriage, if you're just trying to feed the kids but you're not actually connecting with the kids, then it doesn't matter how many tasks in the day you can get done, you are not going to feel like you're balancing anything. That really is. And I was at the chiropractor and I was just getting, if my hips aren't in line, when I'm a runner, you're a runner, we run together, and sometimes I'll have pain in my foot or my knee, but it's really my hips that are off. So having myself well aligned is how I'm able to go forward and thrive. And I started thinking about the fact that right now everybody's just scrambling to get tasks done. And they're calling it, I just want to balance everything. And that's what they're calling it, when really, if you're out of alignment, you're not talking to your spouse, you're not spending time with the Lord, you're not connecting with your kids, you're only doing this schoolwork that has to be done, and you might be, and there might be some kicking and screaming and crying that is consistently a part of it. You're not taking care of yourself and your health, then it doesn't matter. You can check every task off the list, but you're going to end your day feeling broken. And so that's where I even realized for myself, like, okay, Nicole, where are you out of alignment in your life? And I had to make some changes. I had to change to my routine. I had to change my priorities. The schoolwork for my kids needed to be me connecting with my kids and putting in effort to get things done, but I'm not going to sit down, get it done, check it off the list, and move on to the next thing, because I saw that then they were becoming out of alignment too.
Well, and look at the energy you brought when you said that.
Yeah.
You were like, yeah, I needed to connect with my kids, but if I need to sit down and get it done, you see like that anxious energy that comes even when you're like, okay, I have to do this. Yeah, that right there is going to change how you approach things and change whether or not you feel like you're in balance or not.
Yeah, and we're not claiming this is easy. Like Dee Dee said, you had worked from home and had to figure out schedules, have conversations. Like,
yeah,
there are things that need to be done to help put everything in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are only task-oriented and we're searching for how can I balance all my tasks, like I think that people just feel empty all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's crazy because you can be super busy but be in alignment with things. I'm spending time with the Lord in the morning. I've had some important conversations and connections with my husband. My kids and I have had some giggles, and we've all talked about what needs to be done for the day and plugged in with each other. House tasks are, they're just menial things along the way that we have to get done as moms.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I'm one of the only people, I have to get them done. I wish I could say that I have got a great chore list for my children and they all do work around the house.
Yeah,
that is not how it works. Like, I have tasks to get done. But all the same things can get done, and it feels completely different when you're in alignment with what's important to you and you're plugged in there first. So I'm still doing the same amount of driving in the car. I'm still doing the same amount of sitting down at the table. I'm still doing all the same chores around the house. But yet, because I've prioritized and plugged in to the areas that I'm supposed to and given them time and given them me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can sit down and read out of your Bible and then check that off the list and walk away. But if you are not giving you during that time, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And we all know that we can give our spouses, we can spend some time, but not actually give them us. Mm-hmm. If we've got the phone in front of our face, or we have different intentions on our mind of what we'd rather be doing than spending that time together, then again, like, check it off the list. But that's not actually being in alignment.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So you have literally had a career working from home and raising kids at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
What are some mistakes that you feel like that have thrown off your alignment over time? Do you have anything that comes to mind as far as a struggle?
Yeah, one, thinking that you're gonna allot certain times every day and have a super structured schedule, because it's not gonna happen. If you walk in and say, I am dedicating 3 hours to this work project, somebody's gonna come and need something. They're gonna knock on your door, they're gonna need you to open a jar, they're gonna ask you where the crayons are. Like, you are gonna get interrupted. So that didn't work. Tried that.
Check.
I did the chart of, there's like a, I don't remember the name of it, but it's where you put in things that are urgent and important, things that are urgent and not important, and things that are not urgent and important, and things that are not urgent and not important. You're supposed to fill that out.
I've seen it.
And then you use that to structure your day. No, it doesn't work. Because the thing is, it might not be that important in the long run, but if you don't take care of the little thing right now, it'll become a big problem down the road. So I have read so many books and I have tried so many strategies and so many plans. And they don't work for me. And they obviously work for some people, because it worked for somebody who wrote the book, and then it worked for some people who bought the book and promoted it, but it did not work for me. What worked for me was, one, being humble enough to say, I can't do all of this. I can't. And going to the Lord, and I actually made a list of every responsibility I had. This was years ago. And it was hard to write. And if you are feeling overwhelmed or super anxious and like you have way too much on your plate, writing that list is going to be very difficult. I hosted a marriage seminar, which I wasn't the speaker, but I put it together. And one of the activities we did was we listed all of our areas of responsibility, and then prayed over it. Lord, what do you want us to do? So we did this exercise I did on my own, And I struggled with it the first time I did it. And one of the ladies there got up and walked out of the room. And I went and met her in the hall, and she had a complete breakdown in the hall. And she said, seeing it on paper, like, it gives me chills and almost makes me tear up.
I can tell by looking at you that...
She said, seeing it on paper makes me super anxious. And I know I can't do all of this. Because you end up in a stage of life that you don't set out for. Nobody sets out to be completely overwhelmed and overcommitted, and it's not bad stuff. It's great stuff that you're committing to. But at the end of the day, you only have a certain amount of time and energy that you can devote. So I went through that, and I read over it, and I prayed over it, and I had to let some things go off of that list that I enjoyed doing. I stopped coaching soccer, and I enjoyed coaching the little kids, but I sat out for a season. And there were little things like that I just had to take a step back from. Even teaching Sunday school in preschool, instead of every Sunday, I said I can commit to one Sunday a month. And making those changes, and then even with my job, going, and I have a unique situation, so my parents are my boss in a family business, but I respect my parents at work as my bosses, my dad as my boss, because I feel like that's my responsibility to him at that time. And going to him and saying, you're not getting the best of me, because I am so overwhelmed with these smaller menial tasks that if I could hire someone else to be my assistant and take care of these tasks, I could be a lot more productive. And I laid that out for him, and he agreed. And it was a short amount of time. I didn't have one person. I had multiple people working for me and producing so much more with less effort. Customers were happier because they were getting information back faster. And so that was really a great exercise, but it was a really hard exercise to do when you're in that moment of feeling so overwhelmed that you don't know where your next breath is going to come from. You are going to bed late at night, getting up early in the morning just to get everything done. You're burning the candle at both ends, and you feel like a failure because you feel like it's your responsibility. But I remember I read Proverbs 31 so much during that time, and just fell in love with that lady in there. And one of the things she does is she plants a vineyard out of her savings of time and money. That's one of the versions that I think it might be the Amplified. And I don't like to quote scripture without seeing it in front of me, but I don't remember what version it was written like that in. She plants a fruitful garden. And I was like, yes, that's what I want. I want to be fruitful in my life. I don't want to just be busy for the sake of being busy. I want to bring value. And yeah, that really spoke to me. That was a really long-winded answer to your question, but
I don't even remember what the question was, but it was really good.
The question was, where did I mess up along the way?
Okay.
And get out of alignment and get out of balance. And so yeah, those were some of the ways that I messed up. But I will say that list and praying about it was fantastic in making
addressing, like, I love the list idea, and I think addressing it also, we have to have a humble heart when we address it, because so often we have a hard time saying, I need help.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes that even means, so you went to your father and said, if you want the best employee up from me, this is what I need, which that's you have to do that with a humble heart. Yes. But also going to our spouses.
Absolutely.
And saying, I need help here. Because I think we feel like we're failing if we can't do it all. And one of the reasons is because we look at other moms out there. It's like the keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. Well, look what she does, and why can't I do this? We got to stop that. We got to stop comparing ourselves to other people. Because one of the things, you and I have become such good friends over the years, and you and I are very different. And I can't compare myself to you. I mean, if I did, I would be rocking in a corner somewhere if I did that, just because you have different gifts and abilities and are able, your analytical brain sees things that I don't even see. We obviously knew that when we watched the same video and had different ideas that came from it. But I have different gifts than you do. So if I continuously saw things that you did and would kick myself in the rear because I wasn't you, then really what we would be doing is kind of slapping God in the face and saying, how you made me is not right. I'd actually like to be her. And I'm not. But look how, I think you and I complement each other really beautifully. So
I agree.
This is all like coming to me as I'm saying it. Like, isn't that what we want to do as women? Is just lock arms and complement each other beautifully?
Yes.
And
absolutely
kind of kill the whole idea that we should be balancing things. Let's align ourselves with the things that are important, lock arms, and complement each other.
I love it. And I love what you're saying, too, because we are very different. But our differences make us stronger, I believe. Because you look at something, and I can see it through your eyes. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad she pointed it out that way, And you've taught me so much over the years, even about forgiving myself, because for little things. And I thought, I'm so grateful that the Lord has allowed an amazing community in my life. It's been intentionally built, I've sought that out. But women that build each other up and celebrate the differences and don't try to conform you to this certain mold. I think we need to celebrate that. That's fun. It's exciting, and it brings a wholeness to your life that you can't have by yourself.
And really, that's what we're doing here. We're creating a community of women that complement each other.
Yeah.
And that make us feel whole, because the world wants to tell us we're broken.
Yeah. And when we talk about transformation, this is what I love too. We're not talking about transforming into being like someone else.
No.
It's about transforming into who God intended us to be. But our own fears and thoughts and doubts and insecurities have held us back from that. And that's really exciting to me.
So really what this whole thing's about is being enough. This whole podcast. That's why we named it Enough. We have had enough with the world telling us how we're supposed to be. We've had enough with the keeping up with the Joneses. Like, it's time to really shine exactly how we were created. And how you were created was enough. And that's really what the whole theme of this is, and what we really want to just keep talking about every single week is the fact that we are enough. And it's time to show up. It's time to show up.
So I have a question for you about the alignment. So one of the things I did early on, years ago, and I still have this card, was when my life was not in proper alignment. It was very easy for me when the girls were little to put them at the top of the list. It was like the girls, sometimes then work, sometimes then God, then Ken was down there. It was easy to put them at the top of the list because they were so needy. But I had to make a card, and it says my priorities, and it said number 1, God. And it was a verse about the importance of seeking God first and everything. Number 2, Ken. And what we're called as wives to do and to be for our husbands, and the importance of him in my life. Number 3, my children. And then number 4, my work. And And then it had a few other things after that. But I had to keep that in front of my face and pray that regularly. In fact, I kept it on my bedside table on my Bible. And then on really rough days, I would even bring it down and put it on my computer. Because it was really easy for me to mix up my priorities for a long time. And I still have to be super intentional with how I structure my day, because it's still easy to mix up priorities.
And you can see how when those things, just one of those things moves out of order.
Mm-hmm.
If we put kids above God and marriage,
Mm-hmm.
how that causes a lot of pain in different areas.
Absolutely.
For ourselves, we're not doing our kids any justice, and we're
Mm-hmm.
certainly not serving our husbands well.
Right.
Or if we put job above everything else, that causes problems with our kids, with our husband, and then our relationship with God. We're angry, bitter, upset, anxious. That whole thing starts. So having, again, sticking those things in alignment
Mm-hmm.
and keeping them in order really does create a beautiful picture.
Yeah. And I just thought about something when you were talking. Whatever you put up top, so your job, it was when you said job, because I've seen so many times in the corporate world, people put their job as number one. And it becomes their identity. And then when they retire, that's a huge struggle, because what do? You're kind of lost. So when you were talking about that, I thought, whatever you put at number one starts to become your identity. So you put your children at number one. What do you do when they graduate and leave home? Because hopefully one day they will graduate and leave
Create
home.
a life of their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a struggle for a lot of people to redefine themselves, because for so long their worth, their purpose was around their children, and so how cool is it that if you put God at number one, then that will begin to define you, what he says about you. So he's so wise, and what he tells us is for our own good. He's not doing it to say, hey, you need to praise me. You need to keep your mind on me all the time. It's for our own good. And look at how beautiful our lives lay out when we do that.
And any human on that first rung, that first pedestal, I don't want anyone to put me on their first pedestal. I do not want to be what somebody's counting on in their life. I mean, to me, the Lord is the only one that can go on that top pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my husband put me there, he's going to be highly disappointed.
Yeah.
If my children put me there, they're going to be highly disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And if I put them there, then I'm going to spend my life disappointed.
Right.
We can't count on humans to find our worth.
Mm-hmm.
It's only our worth is found in the Lord.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is how our conversations spiral.
Because this is totally different than how we've talked before.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it. And I mean, right now I'm just yes. My mind's just spinning because what we talked about in alignment before, alignment versus balance, we didn't get into where we should align ourselves with, and if that gets out of balance,
Mm-hmm.
what it can do. But you're so right. It turns into a mess. And if I think about, I'm sure there's stories that have come out of that, of friends that I've seen have put their children first, and then once their children are gone, there's not a marriage left to stick around for. And I've seen people put all their hopes in a spouse, and their spouse passed away suddenly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beyond a mourning. It was total turmoil in their life, because that was their top rung.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you brought that up.
Well, it was sparked by something you said, and so that's what makes it fun. How do you find alignment in your life?
Well, I'll tell you what happens when I throw myself out of alignment.
Okay.
Anxiety kicks in a big way. I feel it physically in my body. I feel it the way that I want to eat, the energy I have, and what hurts. I mean, it's weird. Like, I literally can feel it all in my body. And when I start feeling that, I know that I need to look at what I'm doing and where my heart is and where my energy goes. So clearly I know when I'm spending time with the Lord and when I'm not. It is so evident in my life. It's crazy. Clearly I can see when I'm plugged into my marriage and I'm not. And it's never that I don't love my husband, but I'm not connecting with my husband. And then that just becomes, we're passing in the night and we don't really have much to, I don't really even want to listen to him and he doesn't want to listen to me. You know, it's just this real, like it's very clear. But it's only very clear because I know what being in alignment feels like. So we're not in a danger point, but there is definitely a signal to me that I need to reevaluate where am I putting my energy right now and where is my heart. I think that's really, I mean, it's almost like I have this little visual of these disk drives that we're sliding into to be in alignment, but on the other hand, it's where is my heart? And if my heart isn't taking focus where it's supposed to be, then that's when chaos starts swirling.
Yeah. And it's great that you notice that, because sometimes that's the best indicator, is when you're out of alignment, like when things aren't going quite right, to take note of that and not just dismiss it as, well, this is just life.
And not expect it to fix itself.
Yeah.
Like, I clearly know that I need to take action in that because I'm out of alignment. I am not focused where I need to be focused. I am not caring for myself or for others the way I should. I'm not spending my time how I should. My thoughts aren't where they should be. My heart is not in the right place. And so I'm grateful that I have become self-aware enough that the little radar bells, ding, 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 start going off pretty quickly when I'm in that, when I get there. But again, that comes down to having enough time to spend time plugging into what God has to say and then praying about it afterwards. And that's when my little radar bells will go off if we have Mayday, Mayday, we have a problem. It's pretty evident.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today as we talked about balance versus alignment. And I hope that you guys, I mean, obviously Dee Dee and I, as we were talking, we got so much from this conversation. We're hoping that you found some value in it too.
Visit us at liveyourdesign.life to see our other episodes and also to check out our social media links.
Until next time, goodbye.
Bye.